It took a while for Michigan basketball to get going, but eventually it blew out Howard in the round of 64. We're going to get into that and much, much more right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Olo, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. First, we'll start off with Michigan's win over Howard in the NCAA Tournament. Then we'll dig deeper into some of Jay Ill's comments from yesterday, now that I can have them in front of me. Did a little bit better than I thought I did in recapping everything. Finally, 5 defensive players I don't think we're talking about enough. So, all right. Let's start off with the NCAA Tournament. Michigan beats Howard 101-80 in a game that wasn't ultimately that close. The final minute and a half, 2 minutes. Howard went on, I think, like a 7-0 run, while Oscar Goodman and Malik Cordell and Howard Isley Jr. and Charlie May were out there, right? So wasn't exactly, Michigan's A-list out there. No offense to those guys. I'm just saying, like, these are guys that weren't playing before. And it took a long time, obviously, for Michigan to get going. Here is my ultimate takeaway from this. That is the easiest game they're going to see the rest of the way on both ends. They shot 67% from the floor, 65% in the first half, 69% in the second half. So offense was never really an issue. And it was really great to see them come out with a punishing version of the offense right out of the gates in the second half. Obviously, the issue continues to be defending the perimeter, because while it ended up being a lot better, 2 of 11 before garbage time from 3 from Howard in the second half there. 10 makes out of 14 tries in the first half. And considering St. Louis is a really, really, really good 3 team, there's a lot of them in the Midwest region. Michigan cannot afford to have that happen. I mean, that's been the Achilles heel all season, obviously. And then if you start mixing in turnovers and things, which they were fine yesterday, they weren't like great, but they weren't terrible. You start mixing in some of those types of things, and then you start kind of giving the ability for an upset. So, Avila from St. Louis is a dangerous player. They're going to need to be on him. They cannot just they can't let players like him or any of the others that they have beat them. But that said, welcome back, Morez Johnson Jr. After a really bad stint in the Big Ten tournament, he was phenomenal. And he wasn't the only one, but I mean, like, he was almost perfect in just about every way. 21 points. 8 for 8 from the floor, including a 3, 10 rebounds. I mean, it was about as good as it could get, minus the missed free throw. That's it. Like, I mean, if he hits that free throw, then that's the difference in, getting him a face on Mount Rushmore or not. But no, I mean, it's good to see that he finally came alive, right? Because he was the guy, like, when people asked me earlier in the season, who outside of Yaxel is the dude for me? It's been Morez, like, because he's been phenomenal on both sides. And then in the Big Ten tournament, he just was like kind of lifeless and making mistakes. And, it was his mistakes that almost cost the Wisconsin game. And, it's good to see him rebound the way that he did. So that's good. Roddy Gayle Jr., they say January, February Izzo. It might actually be January, February Gale, because that he just comes alive, and he was so good on his home court, essentially, as a Niagara Falls native. It was good to see him play so well. Adai Mara, obviously, I mean, right from the jump, literally just huge play right out the gates. But still want to see more from Elliott Cadeau and Yaxel. Yaxel's kind of had like a quietly, outside of the Wisconsin game, he's just been, I mean, and Michigan State, of course, to close out the regular season, he's just been kind of slightly just kind of disappearing. And they can't have that, right? Their best player needs to be their best player for the rest of the season. And it's not for a lack of trying in some cases, but sometimes it is. It seems like he's just not going full bore, and you need to see him do better. And I think that, you know, he and Cadeau both finished with 9 points, but at least the good news was Nimari Burnett came along. To get to see Nimari Burnett just open up with a barrage of threes, making plays, like it's been a long time coming in a way. I mean, that was good to see. But really the Elliott Cadeau and the Yaxel, and to some degree, I want to see more Trey McKinney, because even like Will Shetter got involved and hit a couple threes, and that was good to see. But, this was, they got 101 points, nothing to complain about as far as that's concerned. But like the margin for error is about to radically decrease starting tomorrow at noon. So that's it. And when I say that's it. That's all I got. I mean, it was a great performance. Hence we didn't do a whole show because I didn't have a whole show worth of material after. And honestly, after writing 10 articles and everything else, it didn't really feel like more needed to happen. But all right, we're going to move on. We've got some football stuff to talk about. Let's do read some Jay Hill quotes and talk more about them. In case you didn't, we can expound upon the car show yesterday, or, if you didn't see the car or listen to the car show, then you're going to get the direct quotes instead of me just sitting there being like, here's what I think he talked about. Anyway, we'll get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, this is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. The Maize and Blue took flight in the NCAA tournament on Thursday, and though it took a while to topple Howard they did. The star of the show was sophomore forward Morez Johnson Jr., who rebounded, literally and figuratively, from a moribund showing in much of the Big Ten tournament to be perfect. 8 for 8 from the floor with a 21-point showing, 10 rebounds, a 3, a steal, and a block. His only blemish being a missed free throw. Moments like these remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. Is that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, we're going to move on here in just a moment. But before we do, college basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, especially now with the NCAA tournament at hand. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can even apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with Michigan as you've been doing all season long. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Get your first month of the Everydayer Club for free when you use the code MARCH. You'll unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat where I'm hanging out daily. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockdownwolverines.supercast.com to learn more and claim your free month. All right. Jay Hill had some really cool things to say. Among them, I didn't pick necessarily the top quotes because we've already kind of covered that, but I picked some other ones. I'm going to go through 2 quotes here, and we're going to read and react to these a little bit more directly than we did with my kind of recap by instant reaction takeaways. So here's quote number 1. Like I say, that's probably the year, talking about 2023. I've seen the most of that. And last year's 2025 team, just trying to understand what the personnel was coming back. But I would say we resemble a lot more of that 23 team. We do run simulated pressures. We run all-out pressures. We run 2 high pressures. We run 1 high pressures, man pressures. You're going to see it coming from different directions. And I don't just want quarterbacks to ever just sit back and know exactly what's coming. So we're going to give them a bunch of looks. I mean, that's huge, even just to kind of like we said, like he wasn't like sitting there really truly breaking down scheme, but the idea that he's actually giving us some actual meat on the bone. Number one, great. Love it. And I love that. I just love the fact that he's still got the same mentality as the previous 3 defensive coordinators. If you missed it, he said that his defense is basically identical to Jesse Minter's in 2023. If you didn't catch that before, that's kind of what we talked about at the outset with show number 2 yesterday. But yeah, huge for him to number one, just kind of state a lot of that. But number 2, I love, again, the idea. And you're going to get this a little bit from our next quote, but just again, his offensive experience, meaning like, yeah, we're not going to let the quarterback ever feel comfortable. Now, that was really the goal with the last defense, Link Martindale defense. And for whatever reason on third downs, it broke down often. Third and long, for whatever reason, opposing teams just for the last 2 years just had a field day. I'd have to look and see. But we're going to do that actually. It wasn't great last year when it came to, third down percentage is probably still not terrible in terms of where Michigan ended up. But it was 53rd last year. The year before it was 88th. That, 2 years ago was worse than last year, of course, but 88th last year in third down conversions. You compare that to 2023, Michigan was 7th in the country in opponent third down conversion. So, yeah, they just, you hope to see that change, number one. But ultimately, I just think the idea of we're going to just constantly be trying to confuse you. That's at least, that's not new. That's exactly what we've seen since 2021. And I just think that having fresh eyes on it should help. Now, talking about, like I had mentioned yesterday about how he discovered that the defense was similar because he was looking at a offensive coordinator that he was going up against. And their old footage. Having done the research when I got home and wrote the article, that was Jay Johnson, former Michigan State offensive coordinator who had moved to Wyoming. And his Wyoming game, I don't know exactly how they got the 14 points because they very well could have gotten, pick sixes. I don't know, but like they allowed 14 points in that game. So not exactly the same as the 49-0. There they won 34-14. BYU did. So anyway, second quote, which I think is more pertinent and digs a little deeper into something that we were kind of touched on yesterday. Well, so everything we do is sound. We're not guessing. I'm not just throwing, hey, this front looks like something cool that we drew up on a napkin. We're not doing that stuff. This stuff is sound. It's balanced as far as we're not putting 6 guys to the field and hope, and 1 to the boundary and just hoping it hits. We're not doing that stuff. It's sound. It's evenly spaced and it's coming from different directions and it's tough to pick up. One of the blessings I had when I was assistant coach, I got to coach 6 years on offense and I got to know how we protected things and I got to know how we tried to beat certain coverages or certain defenses. I know how we slid protections to pick up blitzes. Well, now I can take the flip of that and just try to beat the offensive mind on the other side of the ball. That has been a huge thing in my career, just knowing the offensive side of the ball and trying to create havoc. That's huge. That's hard to beat ultimately. Right. If someone has and that's why you occasionally see guys have that flip, right? Like Josh Gaddis. Now I know he hasn't had the prolific offensive career as a coordinator as he had hoped, but he was a defensive back. You see that quite often of guys that, and I think there's a couple on this Michigan staff that played the opposite role. You see that often where, a guy coaches or plays one position and then ends up coaching another. Kind of what ended up happening for Jay Hill to some degree. He did coach cornerbacks as well, but I just think that again, just like it if you left to just me reading it, that sounds somewhat like hubris, but ultimately, like he said it just so like in genteel, matter of fact, like not guessing here. You know, like we know what, you know, what to throw at him. Again, I want to see it because, you know, like the success that he had ultimately, like lots of takeaways, but like gave up some points here and there and all of that kind of stuff. But BYU is different from a talent perspective than Michigan is. So just to see, and you have to keep that in mind, right? Like if you don't keep that in mind, then you're going to sit there and find yourself in the, you know, like the Ohio State fans were in the 2022 offseason being like, seeing that Michigan hired Jesse Mitchell and going LOL Vanderbilt. Well, how did that work out? It's the exact same reason why I cautioned against going full bore against Matt Patricia, despite our misgivings when Ohio State hired him. You know, I think that when you get players who can more so execute what you want, it's just a different deal. So I think it's very exciting. I could not be more impressed with him. Kind of just really feels, and like that's what I'm getting to. I posted an Instagram reel and I put it on TikTok. First time I've posted on TikTok in a year and a half, 2 years. And you know, the comments that I'm getting there are all kind of uniform. The same thing that I said at the top of the show yesterday. The adults are back in the room. And it's great to hear. It's great to see. All right, we've got my 5 players that we're not talking about enough. Let's get to those here in just a moment. But before we do, this episode is sponsored by Supply House. You wouldn't show up on game day without a plan. You wouldn't show up to a job without the right parts. That's why putting Supply House in your starting lineup is always the right call. Here's the stats: 300,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products, 500 tried and true brands, and 90% of the country is in the 1 to 2 day delivery zone. Need last minute coupling, a compressor, a press tool? They've got it, and they'll get it to you quickly. They're clutch, I'm telling you. So if you're a pro in the trades, you can join the MVP of rewards programs and become a trade master. Pros get exclusive members only pricing, priority shipping, industry leading customer service. It's all absolutely free. Visit supplyhouse.com/TM to learn more about becoming a trade master. Use the promo code SH5College for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, promo code SH5College. Supply House, real people, real service. All right, we're going to finish out here momentarily, but before we do, what if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, I was going to do 5 players that we're not talking about enough in general. That was the plan. And then I started writing down names, and they all ended up being defensive players. So 5 defensive players that we're not talking about enough. Some got mentioned yesterday. 3 of the 5 did. But I have 2, and my number 1, and there's no particular order. Right, this isn't a ranking. This is just 5 guys. Not a burger, although I am hungry. I think I've got food waiting out there for me because I should have ordered after the podcast, not before, but I did it backwards. Linebacker Nate Staehling didn't get a mention yesterday, but he probably wouldn't because he had an injury, so I don't think he's probably played, right? He had some kind of broken arm situation when I saw him at the basketball game, right? The day after he committed or whatever. He was wearing like some kind of air cast or something like that on his arm. I knew there was going to be a little bit of time, but I think that he's probably very likely one of your starting linebackers, transfer from one of the Dakota State universities. I always forget which one. think it's north. I just think that, again, having had conversations, I'll just say it here, having had conversations with Sean McGee, the belief was that he was below KU Olave on their list, but ahead of Rasheem Biles, who a lot of people that are watching or listening to this show had believed was the number one transfer portal linebacker out there. So that's straight from the guy that brought him in. So I think that he's going to be a lot better than people are talking about. Number 2 is another linebacker. Got a mention straight away from Jay Hill yesterday, and that's Troy Bowles, who when asked about the linebackers directly, that was the first name out of his mouth. It was like, he's been, he's already showing some things. Like, I think he's going to be really good. Listen, the thing is if you're a 4-star guy, son of a head coach in the NFL, and you're a linebacker and you go to the place you're recruited by and go to the place that's known for having the best linebackers, chances are you're probably already kind of ahead of the mean to some degree. So, he was a reserve this last year, but again, coming off of injury, again, conversation with Wink Martindale last year. Troy was walking by and he's like, he's going to be really, really good when he's healthy. We didn't get to have him all spring. I think that he's going to be a dude for Michigan this year. I would venture you're going to see a rotation between those previous 2 mentioned, as well as I think Nathaniel Usu-Boateng, who very well could be a starter, and Chase Taylor. It's going to be kind of like the Ernest Hausman, Jay-Sean Barham, Jimmy Rolder, and Cole Sullivan rotation. And I mean, is it going to be as good? I mean, that's hard to say. But I think that that's probably, those are your 4 you're going to see kind of regularly. Number 3, another guy that got mentioned is Jonah Lea'ea, who just got mentioned for being just a dude so far already. Let's see if I can pull up the quote here. It said, so Jonah, we brought him from the University of Utah. He's got a ton of ability, super athletic. That's all he said there. No more to add. So I think Lea'ea, again, a little undersized, but I could really see a lot working in his favor. I think he's definitely going to be a part of that rotation. He was really good at Utah. For some reason, we don't talk enough about him as being a dude, right? Like we talk about the 2 returning guys, Etta, Trey Pierce. And I just don't think there's as much fanfare for Lea'ea. And he just, to me, feels like a guy that probably is going to be one of the just a beast on the interior. Bulking up a little bit, supposedly. So we'll see. Number 4 also got mentioned is Shamari Earls. I do think he's behind the other ones that we're talking about here. Oops. I want to read what Jay Hill had to say about him. He said, Shamari Earls, who shows big time ability. That's all he said. But, I think we talk about Smith Snowden. I mean, not as much as we probably should. We talk about Zeke Berry and Jair Hill, but we don't talk enough about Shamari Earls, who, was injured through a lot of the last year. I think there's part of that quote that was missing. I was not on my own transcription there, because he talked about him having kind of those attributes. But I think that, he's the type of dude that was supposed to be the heir apparent to Will Johnson, and just, I think, got precluded by essentially just injuries and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do. Number 5, I still don't understand why we're not talking about Chris Bracy, the safety. I've seen some like kind of fan depth charts, and he's kind of like languishing in the back. I would have him as a starter at safety. Kind of like regardless of Rod Moore, I would venture like Chris Bracy, Rod Moore, if Rod Moore's healthy. Because I just think that, again, like what he's done what he did at Memphis was really impressive. He's I think an absolute dude, and I just don't really understand why no one's really. It's like people forget that he existed. You have to remember, even like with the people that were responsible for bringing in these guys, on top of like the Utah BYU contingent that is around now. were the same ones that were really good at identifying players over the last 5 years. So I think that he's going to be a guy that suddenly, like, I think that people are going to really gravitate towards during the season. And I don't know why he just doesn't get as many mentions as he probably should. So that's my 5, and that's going to do it. So the plan is to have a 6th show after the game tomorrow. That is the plan. Again, it obviously is somewhat contingent on us having enough to fill a whole show. Because if Michigan just wins by like 50 points, it's a little hard. But we'll see what we can do. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again then. Peace.